Hey, what's up, party people? It's your boy Doug Smith, the other half of 95 North Productions. And I'm doing this video because my boy Richard has been pressuring me to do a video about some of our records, the backstory of some of our records. But rather than talk about sort of the samples and the production techniques we use for some of our records, I thought I would give you the backstory for some of the names, maybe dispel some of the myths, and maybe reveal some hidden gems that you may never have heard before. So one of the things I want to talk to you about that you may not know is a little story behind the title of our song, Who's Who on Henry Street. You may be asking yourself, what does that mean, Who's Who? How does that relate to the title of the song, and why did you spell who, H-O-O? Well, you may not know this, but Richard and I are both graduates of the University of Virginia, and the unofficial mascot of the University of Virginia are the Wahoos, designated by this right here. A wahoo is a fish that can drink twice its weight in water, and that's something that unfortunately Rich and I have a lot of experience with, or did have a lot of experience with in college. So sticking with the theme of the hooligans, this record here is the last record that we did on Henry Street. It's the Hooligans 3. It's got 3 tracks on it, 2 that I did and 1 that Rich did. What you may not know is that there is this obscure white label of the Hooligans 3 that has 4 tracks on it. We actually had to get Smitty D from Henry Street to recut the record because the 4th track on here was a track that we promised to another label. That track is called Brazil Scat, and this is one of the only copies of that record. And I'm going to play a little bit of it for you right now. Now, if you want to hear more of that, make sure you get to the anniversary party this coming Saturday. So as you can see, the UVA connection on our records is pretty strong. In fact, we've worked with a number of our fellow alumni on our records. One of those individuals is Lynn Lockamy, who's probably best known for her records Hostile Takeover and In the Club. But the very first record she ever did was with us back in the early 90s, and it was called Hanging On. Here's a little snippet for you. I'd like to say that we discovered Lynn because one of my fraternity brothers, Marvin Dickerson, Root to the Q's, held an audition for us at the University of Virginia with a number of young ladies because we were still looking for a singer for our first vocal record, Shattered Love, on Strictly Rhythm. We found Lynn in that audition. We had her sing the song, and Strictly Rhythm still rejected it. But it obviously worked out for Lynn because she is a hot singer on the circuit now. We're very proud of her success. So another record that has a UVA connection for us is Jazz Ascension on Large Music. The spoken word on that record is by a friend and fellow alum, Lewis Anderson, affectionately known to us UVA people as Wheezy. He actually sent us the poem that is incorporated into Jazz Ascension, and we took the poem, we slowed it down, we chopped it up, and it turned into this. Jazz. Body and soul. Tender sax and trombone sliding. Slow. Swinging low. Like jazz. That's definitely one of my favorite records, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. But there are more records that have a UVA connection. Check this one out. So that flute that you're hearing right now is another fellow UVA alum by the name of Nicholas Laget. You might know him from records that he did with our boy Taha on their label. They went by the artist named T. Coli. We invited Nick over to do a solo on this record, which is Forever Underground on Large Music. Definitely one of my favorites. Here's yet another UVA connection. One of our boys, Monsef Belyamani from Morocco, otherwise known as Monfresh or Delicious Monster, used to come to Red when we were playing there in Washington, D.C. in the late 90s. And he befriended us, and we used to let him open for us, but he also had serious musical skills. And so we actually picked up one of his productions on our record label, 95 North Productions, 95 North Records. That was called Going On by Nickalicious, featuring our friend from Richmond, Virginia, Carla Brown. One of my favorite records, though, that he did was a remix of Unbelievable that we put out on K2 Records, and this is a little bit of that record. Definitely one of my favorites. Sending a shout out to Monsef and a shout out to Taha for putting that record out. Okay, so enough of the UVA connections. Why don't we talk about the very first record that we did? A lot of folks don't know that the very first record that we did not come out under the 95 North name. We didn't have a name back then. We were just putting out records. The very first record that we did as a production duo was this record here, Thank You by Scram. So yeah, those anemic vocals are actually a replacement for Lolita Holloway's vocals, which everyone sampled, including us, but for which we could not get clearance for this record. So even though Scram was our first record, a couple of interesting things about that record. We didn't come up with that name. There was a Scram record that came out before our Scram record, and Strictly Rhythm forced us to use that name. So a lot of people think we produced the very first Scram record on Strictly Rhythm. We did not. We just used the name. But that actually isn't the first record that came from one of us. The very first record that came out from one of us was by Richard. This record here on Studio Records, way back in the 80s, called Ride the Groove.
Ride the groove. Ride the groove.
Yeah, those are Rich's vocals. Tragic. But Rich actually did a better job on his second record, which was actually his first house record, which I still love, and it's called Come Together. This was also on a DC record label. Much better. Here's another record you might know, our first record on Large Records, called Mind Together. Check it out.
Get your mind together. Get your mind together. Get your mind together. Get your mind together.
Definitely one of my favorite records because it's one of the first records we ever did that used the SP1200. Rich had just bought it and we just loved the sound of that drum machine, and so putting this record together was great. But what you may not know is that record actually started out as a remix for this right here. That's right. That started out as a remix to What I Need by Crystal Waters. Rich did that all on his own, but unfortunately the label didn't pick it up. So we repurposed it and turned it into Mind Together on Large Records. Interesting thing about What I Need is the original track that got us the record deal for that record was something I put together, and then Rich remixed it and it turned into that. That is a very rare remix. It is only on cassette. You might hear that on Saturday night too. So after hearing all this stuff, you might be thinking, well, what does Doug do? Does he actually do anything? Does he make any music? Does he remix anything? The answer is yes. Now, I'm going to give Rich credit. When we first started, I really didn't know my way around a keyboard. I didn't know how to program beats. But through observation and then eventually picking up my own keyboard, I learned how to program beats and come up with some rudimentary chords and make some things on my own. So yes, I do produce, contrary to popular belief. Here's one of the things I did on my own.
Hey
was me. Here's another one I did all by my lonesome. Shout out to Andy Compton and Marie Tweak for writing such a great record. The first time I heard it, I was just in love with it, and I reached out to Andy and said, please, I'll do it for free. Just give me a chance to remix the record. And so I took it in and put my own spin on it. I hope you all liked it. All right, here's another remix that I did on my own. We actually remixed this record together, Rich and I, but I wanted to come up with something that was a little bit more, I don't know, deep, if you will. And so, see if you recognize this one. So yes, that was me as well. So I actually do something. I'm not just the silent partner saying, I like that. That sounds good. I'm actually making things. So those are just some cool stories behind some of the records that we've done. Hopefully you learned a little bit about 95 North and Doug Smith. I hope you enjoyed it. If I get some more time, I'll put together some more interesting stories behind some of our records. I want to say peace to all of my friends, especially my brother Richard Payton, who without him I wouldn't have been able to do any of this stuff. I definitely appreciate you, my brother, and looking forward to Saturday.